Estonia.
I'm going to kind of keep it short and sweet because I am nursing a cold. And I don't want to cough up a lung on everybody. So, Andrew is just about ready. Here he is.
Hey James, hello Chariton, how are you? So fun. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for being here. I love campaigning here in Iowa because you all are among the most important, influential people in the country today. I know it doesn't feel like it necessarily is living your lives. Occasionally a presidential candidate comes through. I did the math. Do you know how many Californians each Iowan voter is worth? 1,000 each.
Wow.
Yeah, so look around this room today. How many of us are there? I'm going to give a Trumpian estimate. There are 400 people here today. The biggest group anyone's ever seen. At least I get maybe 25 to 30 people here, but that's still about one football stadium worth of Californians in terms of voting power. That's why it's a thrill to campaign here every single moment, because you all have this power that the rest of the country looks on with envy, which is that you can actually push our entire nation in a new direction on February 3rd. So the question is, what are you going to do with that power? What's the plan? Most of you know I'm not a career politician. Raise your hand if you've seen a TV ad of mine or something like that. It makes me very happy because we spend a lot of money on those ads. You're very heartbreaking. Sorry, TV ads. So, I'm not a career politician. I'm running to try and solve a problem or a challenge that our country's been wrestling with for the last several years, that we've still been somehow very confused about, even though it's the most important thing going on. And the question or challenge is this: why is Donald Trump our president? Oh, they're good. Oh. If you were to turn on cable news anytime between when he won and now, why would you think that he won? Media, as part of it.
Hillary ran a terrible campaign.
Hillary Rodham Clinton. That's another piece of.
Yeah.
What else?
Apathy.
Apathy, turnout, fear, stupidity, Russia, perhaps,
Yes.
Facebook,
Yes.
social media.
To a certain part of the population that hadn't been voters.
Not a politician. And so all of these things have been kind of mixed together and said, this is why Trump's our president. But I'm a numbers guy, and I went looking through the numbers for an explanation, and I found one that I think will make sense to you all. Over the last number of years, we got rid of 4 million manufacturing jobs in this country. And where were those jobs primarily located? Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Missouri, and 40,000 right here in Iowa. And if you go to those manufacturing towns in Iowa that lost their jobs, after the jobs dried up, then the shopping district closed. Then people started to leave, then the schools shrank, and that town has never recovered. I saw that pattern play out not just here in Iowa, but also in Missouri, Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, because I spent the last 7 years running a nonprofit that helped create thousands of jobs in those states. And unfortunately, I had the sense that my work was like pouring water into a bathtub that had a giant hole ripped in the bottom. That water rushing out helped put Donald Trump in the White House. To me, it was the driving force behind it, because if you look at that list of states we just went through, why does that list of states sound so familiar? It's because those are all the swing states that Trump needed to win and did win. And unfortunately, what we did to those manufacturing jobs, we're doing to other jobs throughout the economy. How many of you have noticed stores closing around where you live here in Iowa? And why are those stores closing? Amazon, that's right. A number of years ago, you might have said Walmart. Walmart's like a tank that came in and just started running over mom and pop retail stores. But now we have Amazon that's more like a spaceship. It's like covering over the whole thing. So Amazon's soaking up $20 billion in business every year, closing 30% of our stores and malls. I was just in Oskaloosa this morning, and that mall just lost JCPenney. And you know when a mall starts going dark, that mall can go from being fun to eerie very, very quickly.
Yes.
Most common job in the economy is retail clerk. The average retail clerk is a 39-year-old woman making between $8 and $12 an hour. So when her store closes, what's her next opportunity? It's a rhetorical question. We're not really sure. But unfortunately, a lot of people are finding out right now. How much did Amazon pay in taxes last year?
0.
0. So that is the math. 20 billion out, spaceship style, 0 back, 30% of your stores and malls closed. You see these changes around you, but they're more pervasive than most of us realize. When you want to call the customer service line of a big company and you get the bot or software on the other end, you probably do the same thing I do, which is you pound 000, say human, human, representative, human. Pound those buttons until you get someone on the line. Raise your hand if that's what you do. Oh yeah, we all do that. That software is miserable. We're all like, there's a human working for this company somewhere, and I'm going to find them. But in 2 or 3 short years, the software is going to sound like this. Hey Andrew, how are you? What can I do for you? It'll be fast, seamless, efficient. You might not even know it's software. What is that going to mean for the 2.5 million Americans who work at call centers right now making $10 to $14 an hour?
They're going to lose their job.
How many of y'all know a truck driver here in Iowa? My friends in California are working on trucks that can drive themselves. They say they're 98% of the way there. A robot truck just transported 20 tons of butter from California to Pennsylvania 3 weeks ago with no human intervention. Why did they choose butter for this maiden voyage? I don't know. But if you Google robot butter truck, you will see the story pop up. And at the end of the route was a giant stack of pancakes, as far as the eye can know. I made up pancakes. But everything else is true. What will these self-driving trucks mean for the 3.5 million truck drivers in our country, or the over 7 million Americans who work at truck stops, hotels, and diners that rely upon those truckers getting out and having a meal every day? How many of you have been to Iowa 80 in Davenport? Yeah, me too. They say 5,000 people stop there every day. How many people will stop at Iowa 80 when the trucks no longer have drivers? We're going through the greatest economic and technological transformation in the history of our country right now. Experts are calling it the 4th Industrial Revolution. When's the last time you heard a politician say 4th Industrial Revolution? 3 seconds ago, just now, yeah. And I'm barely a politician. My wife can vouch for the fact that I never intended to run for president. If she thought I was going to do this when we were dating, she would have run the other way.
True.
So I'm an entrepreneur who's been creating jobs for the last number of years. I was getting medals and awards. I got to bring Evelyn to meet the president. So my in-laws were very excited about me for about a week. But I felt like my work was not actually doing the trick. And then Trump wins, and then I go through the numbers and I see, okay, I get it. We're going through this epic economic transformation. We're scheduling immigrants to towns immigrants have very little to do with. Because when you go to a factory in Michigan, you don't find wall-to-wall immigrants doing work. What do you find? Wall-to-wall machines and robots doing the work. And you don't think about what's happening to your malls and stores as automation, because it's not like a robot showed up at the store and order. But Amazon is what closed that store. If you go to the Amazon fulfillment center, what do you see? Robots, that's right. And to the extent that they're the Amazon fulfillment centers, they actually have bracelets on, tracking their every movement because they're trying to find ways to get rid of them and make them more efficient. So this is where our economy has evolved here, and it's about to speed up. Before deciding to come to you all and run for president, I went to our leaders in Washington, D.C., and I said, what are we going to do to help our people manage this transition? And what do you think the folks in D.C. said to me when I said, what are we going to do? Nothing.
They laughed.
Laughed. A person at another event here in Iowa made the Scooby-Doo noise, like, ooh. Yeah, so the answers I got out of D.C. were these. Number 1, we cannot talk about this. Number 2, we should study this. And number 3, this will be familiar to you all. We must educate and retrain all Americans for the jobs of the future. How many of you have ever heard a politician say something like that? That's pretty familiar, right? But I looked at the studies. You all want to guess how effective the government-funded retraining programs were for the manufacturing workers who lost their jobs in the Midwest? You know it's low because I'm anchoring you low. I'm obviously suggesting the rates are very low. But you also know it's low because you know human beings. You know if you have hundreds of manufacturing workers that lose their job, they don't all come out and be like, I'm here for my coding training program now. I've been waiting for this opportunity. I mean, that's not reality. The success rates of these programs are very low, 0 to 15%. The reality is that almost half of the manufacturing workers that lost their jobs in the Midwest left the workforce and did not work again. Of that group, almost half filed for disability. You then saw surges in suicides and drug overdoses in those communities to the point where America's life expectancy has now declined for the last 3 years in a row. You know the last time America's life expectancy declined 3 years in a row?
Great Depression.
The Great Depression is a great guess. It's a little bit further back. It's the Spanish flu of 1918, a global pandemic that killed millions of people. You have to go back 100 years because it's highly unusual for life expectancy to decline in a developed country ever. It ordinarily goes up and up because we're getting richer, stronger, healthier, right? But in America, it's gone down and then down and then down again. So when I said this to the folks in DC, one person said something that brought me here to you all today. He said, Andrew, you're in the wrong town. No one here is going to do anything about this. Because fundamentally, this town, Washington, DC, is a town of followers, not leaders. And the only way we will do something about it is if you were to create a wave in other parts of the country and bring that wave crashing down on our heads. And I said, challenge accepted. I'll be back in 2 years. And Chariton, that was 2 years ago. And now here we are. I'm fourth in the polls and rising to be the Democratic nominee. We did $16.5 million last quarter in increments of only $35 each. So my fans are almost as cheap as Bernie's. But there was no corporate PAC money in that number. This was all just ordinary Americans knowing that we have to retake our government, make it work for us again, and then actually take some of the value that's leaving your communities and bring it back to you. So if you've seen the ads, you've seen that I have this very dramatic proposal, which is to give every American $1,000 a month. Raise your hand if you saw that. And then raise your hand again if you thought, that's a gimmick, that will never happen, that's too good to be true. It's totally fine. I understand. It's not my idea though, and it's not a new idea. Thomas Paine was for this at the founding of the country. He called it the citizen's dividend for all Americans. Martin Luther King, whose birthday we celebrated on Monday, was fighting for this in the 1960s, guaranteed minimum income for all Americans. It is what he was fighting for when he was killed. And I know this in part because I had the privilege of sitting with Dr. King's son in Atlanta, who said that this is what his father was fighting for. It was so mainstream that 1,000 economists in the 60s, including Milton Friedman, one of the godfathers of modern economics, endorsed this plan. And it passed the US House of Representatives twice in 1971 under Richard Nixon. 11 years later, one state actually passed a dividend where now everyone in that state gets between $1,000 and $2,000 a year. No questions asked. And what state is that?
Alaska.
And how does Alaska pay for it?
Oil.
And what is the oil of the 21st century? Technology, data, AI, self-driving cars and trucks. A study just came out that said that our data, your data, is now worth more than oil. How many of you saw that study? How many of you got your data check in the mail last month? So if your data is now worth billions of dollars a year and you're not seeing a dime of that, then who's getting all of that money?
CEOs, CFOs.
Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, the trillion-dollar tech companies that are paying zero or next to zero back into our country. How many of y'all are parents like me and Evelyn? If you're a parent, you've had the sinking feeling over the last number of months or days or years that we're leaving a future that is less stable, less secure, and less prosperous for our kids in the lives that we have led. The reason we feel that way is because it's true. If you were born in the 1940s in the United States of America, there was a 93% chance you were going to be better off than your parents were. That's the American dream. That's what brought my family here. That's what we all aspire to for our families. But if you were born in the 1990s in the US, you're down to a 50-50 shot, and it's declining fast. That's why we feel the way we do. That's why our kids are so anxious about their future. That is why Donald Trump won this state, a purple state, by almost 10 points. Is that if you look around and you genuinely do not feel excited about your kid's future, then you're willing to go to great lengths to try and make changes. So how are we going to rewrite the rules so we're actually excited about the future we're leaving for our kids? If we reach up and take a tiny sliver, your fair share, of every Amazon sale, every Google search, every Facebook ad, every robot truck mile, eventually every AI work unit, we can easily afford $1,000 a month and put it into your hands, in the hands of your families. Particularly because when you have this money, where will it actually go?
Back into the
How much of it would stay right here in Iowa? Most all of it. Not all of it. You might get your own Netflix password or do something, result in some of it. But most of it would go to healthcare bills and car repairs you've been putting off, and literacy sign-ups and daycare expenses, and local nonprofits and religious organizations, and maybe Democratic Party dues for Jim. This is the trickle-up economy, from our people, our families, and our communities up. This would work. And this is just about the only thing that would work to create a new way forward for rural areas that are getting sucked dry. So it seems dramatic, but it actually becomes very, very common sense and even inevitable when you realize the scope of the situation that we're in. We're being told that things are great right now. You have corporate profits at record highs, GDP is at record highs. You know what else are record highs in the United States of America right now? Financial insecurity, stress, mental illness, anxiety and depression, substance abuse, drug overdoses, suicides. You know what are record lows right now? Starting a business for a young person, getting married, having a kid. All the things you associate with a good life have fallen to record lows. But corporate profits are up. If your corporate profits are going up and your life expectancy is going down, which do you listen to? We know which one DC is listening to. DC cannot even see people in life expectancy anymore. It can just see the dollars. Washington, DC today is the richest city in our country. Think about that. What do they produce? No one knows. And yet business is awfully good. Donald Trump said he wanted to drain the swamp. I want to do something a little bit different, Chariton. I want to distribute the swamp. Now what do I mean by that? Why do we employ hundreds of thousands of government workers in the most expensive city in the country? Why wouldn't we move some of those jobs to Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Iowa? We would save billions of dollars immediately, and I would argue that those government agencies would make better decisions because they were living someplace normal and not all in DC just talking to each other all the time. I'm for term limits for members of Congress. Their goal should be to go to DC and do your work and then come home. It should not be to go there and then stay as long as possible because they like it so much. And I know how we're going to pass it after I'm your president. I'll be your president a year from now, thanks to you. And then I will go to the members of Congress and say, hey, 12-year term limits make you more responsive to the American people. But current lawmakers are exempt. Do you think they'll pass that?
Yeah.
They'll pass that the next day. They'll be like, we do this for the people.
Yeah.
Because they're exempt. They're like some kind of super grandfathered in legislators. They'll be like, look at me. I'm like the immortal legislator. But then eventually they'll lose and get sent home too. And then you'll wind up with a legislature that actually turns over in a reasonable time frame. And we won't have this sinking feeling that these politicians are more keen on keeping their jobs than trying to solve our problems. So here are big ways that we can actually get the government working again and responding to us. But the most crucial thing is actually get this value that we're generating in our economy and making it actually help our families and communities. Right now we have these economic measurements that are telling us how great things are, but we know that things aren't great because our way of life is actually deteriorating. And I know how bad the measurements are because of my own family. My wife is at home with our 2 boys every day, one of whom is autistic. How much is her work valued at in our current economic measurements?
0.
Evelyn gets a 0, as does every other stay-at-home parent in the country. How about caregivers taking care of alien loved ones?
0.
How about volunteers and activists trying to do something positive?
0.
How about coaches and mentors investing in our kids? 0. 98% of artists? Unfortunately, that's a 0. You know, increasingly, and this is something that may be close to home, local journalists are getting zeroed out. Almost 2,000 local newspapers have gone out of business over the last number of years, months. And 200 counties in the US no longer have a local paper at all. You know what doesn't work as well if you don't have local news? Democracy. Because how can you vote on what's going on in your community if no one's actually even covering what's going on in your community? These are the things that we are supposed to value the most in our lives, our families, our communities, our democracy, but they're getting zeroed out one by one by one. And the reason they're getting zeroed out is because our country has been collectively confused to think that economic value and human value are the same things. And this is what we have to dispel on February 3rd. We have to let our fellow Americans know that we all have intrinsic value as Americans, as citizens, and as shareholders of the richest country in the history of the world. I'm not running for president because I dreamt about being president of the United States. These are not the conversations of the Yang household. My parents were never like, you're gonna be president someday. They were like, you're terrible, go clean your room. I'm running for president because, like many of you here today, I'm a parent. I see the future that is ahead for our kids, and it is not something I'm willing to accept. They deserve better. I will give them better, but I need your help to make this case to the rest of the country on February 3rd. Instead of measuring our economy by these corporate profits and pretending that the corporate profits actually enhance our way of life, as your president, I will measure our economic progress by how you are doing. Instead of GDP, we should be using health and life expectancy, mental health and freedom from substance abuse, proportion of Americans who can retire in quality circumstances, income and affordability, childhood success rates, clean air and clean water. These are the real measurements of our country's progress, and if we use them, what would we see? That we're in a mental health crisis, that we're in a wellness depression, that we're in a civic engagement depression. I will present these real numbers to you and the rest of the country every year at the State of the Union, so we can see how we're doing. I'll be the first president to use a PowerPoint deck at the State of the Union. If you like that, this is definitely the campaign for you. If you don't like it, you'll grow to like it after I do it a couple times. So this is how we humanize the economy and get it working for us again. There really is no other way. This winner-take-all economy is accelerating to, frankly, unprecedented levels. And Iowa is ground zero for these changes. You have seen them over the last number of years. It started on your farms when they went, consolidated, and mechanized away a lot of those jobs. Then it went to your factories, blasting away 40,000 manufacturing jobs and shutting a lot of towns. Now it's on your main streets, shutting 30% of your stores and malls. You have to stop it before it gets to your highways. This is it, Iowa. We have this chance to try and have people become more important than money and let people know throughout the country that it's not that we all work for the economy works for us. We don't work for the machines work for us. That is what we have to restore. We have to restore it on February 3rd, and we need your help to do so. Donald Trump's our president today because he had a very clear message. He said he wanted to make America great again. What did Hillary Clinton say in response? America's already great.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
It's been a long 3 years, I know.
Yeah.
But it's now coming to an end. That response did not go over well for a lot of Americans because the problems do exist. We have to acknowledge the problems and their depth and their severity, but then we need solutions that will actually move our country forward. We can't act like Donald Trump is the cause of all our problems. He's a symptom of a disease, and it's up to us to cure that disease. So what were Donald Trump's solutions to the problems that he pointed out? Build a wall, turn the clock back, bring the old jobs back. You all know we have to do the opposite. We have to turn the clock forward. We have to accelerate our economy and society to rise to the real challenges of this time, like climate change. We have to evolve the way we see ourselves and our work and our value. I'm the ideal candidate for this job because the opposite of Donald Trump is an Asian man who likes math. Thank you all very much. Now, you may not know this, but math is actually an acronym. And what does it stand for?
Make America think harder.
Make America think harder. That's right. That's your job on February 3rd. It's your job to move this country not left, not right, but forward. And I know that's just where you will take us. Thank you all so much. Love to take some questions. Yeah, you got a mic. I do that. I just give you the mic.
I'd just like to know your stand on climate change, and also, are you going to insist that we get rid of all private insurance, or are you more in the camp of?
Is that mic on?
We can't hear. Oh, you can't hear me?
No.
Okay, I'll speak louder. I want to know Andrew's stand on climate change, and I also want to know if he is in the camp where we have to get rid of all private insurance, or if he believes we should have a public option and move forward in that direction.
Thank you for both those questions. Those are great questions. How many of y'all are concerned about climate change? It's crushing us. It's an existential threat to our way of life. And there are a number of ways I think we need to speed up on climate change. To me, we should be shifting the subsidies that we're giving these fossil fuel companies and push them towards wind and solar. We have to actually integrate climate change into the way we measure our economy moving forward. One of the things I say to people is, if you want to put a price tag on climate change, how much would it cost? And for context, our annual economy is about 21 trillion a year right now. Okay? So if you had to put a price tag on climate change, do I throw a number out? Trillions of dollars, tens of trillions of dollars, thousands and thousands of lives. So what we have to show our fellow Americans is that doing nothing is actually very, very expensive, and that investing billions of dollars in making our communities safer, stronger, more resilient is actually a cost saver. This is the confusion that we have to alleviate for many, many Americans, and it's tied to this financial insecurity that I was talking about. If you go to one of the 78% of American families who are living paycheck to paycheck, or the half that can't afford an unexpected $500 bill, and you go to them and say, we need to fight climate change, what are a lot of them going to respond? I can't pay next month's rent. I can't worry about a problem next year or 10 years from now. It's probably not that bad anyway. So getting a boot off of people's throat is actually a very important first step to get consensus on climate change, because then if people feel secure about their future and their kids' future, then they'll say, okay, like maybe this is something we need to look at. The other thing we have to try and dispel for many Americans is when you say we need to fight climate change, what do they hear? My prices are going to go up, it's going to be more inconvenient for me, you're going to make me do annoying stuff, and you're going to get rid of jobs. So this is what we have to, again, change by saying, look, by moving in this direction, we're going to create jobs, we're going to save you money, we're going to put you in position actually to be generating more of the kind of opportunities you want. That's not what most Americans are hearing right now. The toughest truths are these. When a politician says they're going to prevent climate change, what's wrong with that statement? We're already on the curve. The last 4 years have already been the 4 warmest years, we've already seen the floods. So at this point, we need to start investing in trying to make ourselves more resilient for the ongoing changes, because the changes are coming. Changes are already here. The other really tough truth is that the United States of America is only 15% of global emissions. We like to talk as if we're 100%, but we're 15%. So even if we were to get ourselves way down, the Earth will likely continue to warm, particularly as China is exporting coal-burning power plants to Africa. So if we want to try and bring the rest of the 85% down, what do we have to do? We have to go to those African governments and say, don't take these coal-burning power plants, take these solar panels instead. We will subsidize them for you. It's a no-brainer. So we have to try and lead very aggressively in that direction. But we realistically are on the curve, and it's going to continue to escalate even if we take heroic measures, which I would lead us and try and lead the rest of the world in that direction. On the health insurance, universal health care in this country, I'm the numbers guy, and it is staggering how much we're spending on our health care in ways that does not actually make us healthier and stronger. We have to break the backs of the drug companies that are just gouging us, these crazy price increases all the time for drugs that we help to subsidize. And I legislate away private insurance companies, because a lot of Americans rely upon those plans, a lot of Americans negotiated for that coverage and even gave up wages. So we have to provide health care to Americans and then demonstrate that that public plan works. If you like your private coverage, you're on your private coverage. If you don't have coverage, then you can make use of this public plan. And that, to me, is the best balance. I will say that right now, our health insurance system is this hidden impediment to us doing the kind of work we want to do, starting businesses. Like right now, it's freezing a lot of people in place. Can you imagine how many Americans think about starting a business, but then think to themselves, what am I going to do about my health care? That's probably millions of Americans a year. And so if you can actually get health care off of people's backs and make it so that it goes with you wherever you go, then we have a much more dynamic and productive economy. And the fact that healthcare is tied to our jobs is actually completely an historical accident. I don't know if you know this, but in World War II, there were pay caps because it was the war. And so the company said, well, I want to try and attract employees, so I'm going to give them healthcare coverage on top of the salary. And that's how we wound up with this crazy system where healthcare is tied to a job. It actually makes no sense that healthcare is tied to a job. And in other economies, other countries, they do not do it this way because it's really counterproductive. So we have to try and shift ourselves towards universal healthcare over time, taking into account the fact that half of Americans have private insurance plans, many of them like it, and we should not imagine, frankly, that like all this stuff. You can't magically reshape 18% of the economy with, frankly, like, you know, a bill or a law. Like, if you tried to do that, it would actually be very, very problematic. Thank you. Those are somewhat long-winded answers to those questions, but I thought they were very important questions. Sure.
In Chariton, of course, I've been here 11 years now, and 15 years prior to that, I believe, we lost a big employer. They're partially here, that's Hy-Vee corporate. They took their corporate and they moved to West Des Moines, which demolished the square, and people left, and we lost a lot. Because that, we are left with a lot of poverty in this town. There are some professionals still, there are people who are making it, barely. But if you go around this town, you're gonna see 5 blessing boxes. I don't know if you're familiar with what blessing boxes are. They're places for people to drop off food and for people to take if they need. And in this town, we have 3 food pantries, 3, and we're still not making it. One is in the middle school, one is in the high school, and one is a general food bank. We're a town of less than 4,500. Is that where we're going? Or how do you foresee a way for us to make that change forward to?
Well, thank you so much for that context. I did know about the Hy-Vee. My team briefed me and let me know what the context was here. And it's heartbreaking that you have so many people, frankly, like going to the pantry and figuring out what they're going to eat based upon what happens to be at the pantry. We have all this food insecurity in this country. I have been to the richest parts of this country. I've been with some of the richest people, honestly. And I've been around some of the poorest. And what we have to do is try and balance the economy out. The fact is, if you were to go to some of like the truly extravagantly wealthy people in this country, like they would not notice if there was like a bigger tax in their business or like these things, because their wealth is so vast that it really would not touch their lives. And then there are people right here in Chariton that are just scrambling to get by and making ends meet. And it's not necessary in the richest country in the history of the world. We're up to $21 trillion a year GDP and growing fast. The problem is that those gains are not being felt in places like Chariton, because we have right now, again, this very market-driven economy where it's like, well, if you're poor here, then you're out of luck. You know why you're out of luck? Because you're not a Wall Street bank. Remember 12 years ago, this financial crisis, the Wall Street banks found themselves in trouble. And so we had a choice, either give the banks $4 trillion or keep Americans in their homes. And which do we choose? The banks. Would you have voted for that? Me neither. None of us would have voted for that. And I saw this happen, and it really, frankly, disgusted me. I was like, I can't believe that's the choice we just made. And that choice is a choice, frankly, we've been making every day since then. Like, there's so much wealth in this country that is not finding it into our hands. It's one reason why, to me, the most efficient way we can help provide a way forward for the people who are struggling here in Chariton is just by saying, look, we're gonna put straight money into your hands. If we put straight money into your hands, how much of that goes to local nonprofits? Probably a significant amount of it, because people here are very, very helpful, very philanthropic. Like we can actually charge up your community by taking some of the resources that are leaving and bringing them back. If you wait for like Hy-Vee to like relocate here, obviously that's not happening. You wait for some new company to get started here, it's not happening. When I talked about the plan of just putting money into people's hands, I did this at the state legislature in Des Moines, and someone came to me and said, this is the only thing I've heard that would actually work for rural towns in Iowa. Everything people are talking about will not work accept what I'm describing. And I know because I've been in the rooms with all the other plans, and the other plans, I'm for rural broadband, but I'm not going to pretend that rural broadband all of a sudden is going to bring prosperity and vitality and new jobs to a town. You know, it's just high-speed internet. I mean, that doesn't like magically create jobs. So we have to get real about what the challenges are. And my proposal as your president is just to put the value that's leaving your town and put it back into your town.
So it's not for everybody in the country, it's for those in need. Because that's the whole idea of that everybody's gonna get $1,000 when they don't need it.
Well, they're the folks that are at the top of the income chain that do not need it and would make no difference to them. The fact is the way that we're gonna be getting this money for this is from them. And so the example I use is this. Let's say Jeff Bezos is worth $115 billion today post-divorce, which is true, he is. There's no judgment, just saying. So, how much are we gonna get from Jeff and Amazon if we put this tax on Amazon when all the revenue is flowing in? And then every year, Jeff takes $1 billion of his wealth and buys rocket ships to Mars. And we get a tax on that too. So we're talking about getting taxes from Jeff Bezos of hundreds of millions of dollars a year, which I think is appropriate. I think we'd all agree that his $1 trillion company paying zero is inappropriate. So with this new system, we get hundreds of millions of dollars from Jeff personally. And then if you try and send Jeff $1,000 a month to remind him he's an American, then it's like immaterial. And so to me, like, this is how we balance it out. The fact is the vast majority of Americans are in a situation where $1,000 a month would be very, very helpful. The vast majority of Americans are in a situation where $1,000 a month would go right back into the economy. Because if you're living paycheck to paycheck and you have this extra cash, where's it gonna go? It's gonna go right into the things that you need and that make your Main Street economy stronger every day. So I love your question, and there's so much pointless deprivation and scarcity and misery in our country today that we can address, I promise you. All we need to do is get enough Iowans to present this vision to the rest of the country on February 3rd, and it will spread like wildfire. If we win Iowa, I just want you to envision the headlines. Andrew Yang wins Iowa February 3rd. Oh my gosh. If we get that headline, we'll win New Hampshire too, and then there's going to be no stopping us. But it has to happen first here in Iowa. That's why it's such a privilege and honor to campaign here, because you all have this power. But I want to help you alleviate the scarcity that we're seeing in your town. And I actually think you should have a higher standard for the presidential candidates who come through. I have a feeling that the standard people have had is like, I want to send someone that we like and are proud of to DC. Like, I feel like that's the way Iowans see their responsibility. I think it should be higher. I think you have to say, we need to deliver something to DC who will actually improve our way of life in our community. That is the standard I want you to hold me to. I believe you should hold all of us to that.
Who won Iowa last election? Hillary.
Yeah. We did one.
I have another question here.
Oh, sure. Sorry, I was trying to leave you.
This question can be quick. One of the things that's bothered me about the situation with Donald Trump is what he has done with our world situation, with our friends in Europe and other places. And that's, to me, that really hurts our country in the future. We have to get along.
Thank you for the question. I couldn't agree more. It's painful for most of us how our standing in the world has declined because Donald Trump has trampled on our historic alliances and partnerships. The thing that's was relevant now, 75% of Americans want nothing to do with war with Iran. So why were we at the brink of war with Iran? In our Constitution, it says that's an act of Congress to declare war. What the heck happened to that? That Congress gave that authority to the executive branch in 2001 and said, you want nothing to do with it. As your president, I would tear up the AUMF and say, look, Constitution says it's for you to declare war. I'm certainly not going to be a person who goes around starting wars the American people want nothing to do with. So Congress should retake this constitutional authority. I would then rebuild our partnerships and alliances around the world, let people know that we're open for business again. Let Iran know that we have want nothing to do with elevating hostilities. We want a diplomatic solution. to try and make sure that they do not become a nuclear power, and frankly, become a figure on the world stage that people are able to breathe a sigh of relief about, because I'll be this massive contrast to our current president. And on the international stage too, I want to tell you guys a little bit of my family background, because it might be interesting. My parents immigrated to this country in the 1960s as graduate students. My father got a PhD in physics. So as a kid, I thought that everyone's dad had a PhD. I would go around being like, what's your dad's PhD in? And then one day someone was like, here's what his PhD is, and I was like, oh no. So I learned. But the American dream has been very, very good to me and my family. It's one reason why I want to give back. But imagine the signal and sense to the rest of the world, where my father grew up on a peanut farm in Asia with no floor, and then I became president. That would be a very, very powerful message to the rest of the world that America's ideals are still sound, and that there's still a place in this world for an America that actually leads based upon our values. Yeah, did you have a question?
Yes, I was wondering where you stand on the Second Amendment.
Sure. Oh yeah, exactly. Anything I got your question. All right. So the question was about gun rights. I'm for common sense gun safety regulations that most Americans support at this point. So it's universal background checks and red flag laws. At the same time, I do not think anyone should pretend that law-abiding gun owners are not going to have their guns. There are 300 million firearms in this country, and it's going to be like a very, very significant number of guns in this country for a long time to come, likely forever. To the extent that we need to, in my mind, work together on some of the gun violence issues, it's to come clean and say, look, almost 2/3 of gun deaths are suicides. That the problems that we're talking about with gun violence are not that necessarily that someone's going to go out and pose a danger to people out in the community. Like actually often it's the gun owner, him or herself. So to me, we want to take a look at gun safety laws that we can all agree on, but we should also be looking at mental health resources in our communities. We should be looking at what's going on in families and schools. As the father of an autistic boy, I know if you have the wrong boy in the wrong school, some very bad things can happen, generally to that boy, but sometimes to others in the community. So putting resources into schools that actually accommodate different types of learning styles and abilities and brain wiring for boys in particular, because the reality is 98% of the shooters that we're concerned about are boys. We have a boy and men problem in this country in that our schools are having a hard time turning boys into strong, healthy young men. And sometimes that is resulting in problems that are associated with violence. And so to me, you can't pretend like it's all guns. You have to try and attack issues at every point in the chain, because it's families, it's schools, it's mental health, it's people feeling they have no future because their towns' opportunities are drying up. These are things that we need to try and alleviate at every stage. And then in that context, I believe that we'd see real declines in the gun violence that people are concerned about.
Well, with home invasions, we have a culture that's different, perhaps in Australia's or New Zealand's or somewhere like that. And there's approximately probably 100 home invasions every week, or maybe even more in this country, where armed people come into people's houses. And there are armed citizens in most of the cases that I've read about that have had firearms, and they have actually prevented maybe one, maybe several people in the house from being shot. And they use it for protection.
I am not sure about those statistics, but I will say if you're a law-abiding gun owner and you have your gun in your home, then you will have your gun in your home. And if it's for protection and that's what you use it for, then that's what you use it for.
See, there's been a broad debate about that with Beto O'Rourke, Hillary Clinton. I'm coming after your guns. We're coming after your guns, America. And America is a different culture.
You will not hear that sentiment from me or I believe many other candidates.
Give it up one more time for the next President of the United States, Andrew.
for our kids to turn this around. February 3rd, we need you to caucus. Thank you so much.
Folks, if you'd like an opportunity to meet Andrew, he's just going to do a quick few minutes with a local reporter, and then we'll meet back here in front of the Iowa flag with Rachel here holding her hands up, and we'll be sure to get you some photos and autographs. Thank you so much.
All right, guys, here's the deal. You see these books on this table right here? Do you see them? They're going to give these out for free to everyone in the room. But here's the thing. It may be free to all of the lovely audience members here, but it's not free for the campaign, which is why they need your donations. How much money do you think it costs to hang all these banners? How much money do you think the banners even cost? How much money do you think it costs for all those signs on the wall? This sign, how much do you think it costs for all the audio gear so that the press can have their stuff? By the way, there's the Fox News reporter who's running the Fox News live stream, stealing all of our viewers. Just kidding. But she's very nice. Let's go over here. I gotta show you guys some more stuff. How much did all these signs cost? Somewhere out here, there's a table full of merch. Hello.
Hey, is he doing a photo shoot?
He's doing a local press real quick. And I'm trying to convince people to donate. So everyone, look at all these pens and bumper stickers and pins and more bumper stickers and free hats and free pins. The campaign gives all of this out for free. But again, it's free to the people, but it's not free to the campaign. They need your small dollar donations right now. I may as well take some of these and pass them out. Oh, by the way, look, there's the bus. How much money does the bus cost? They have a driver for it. They have to wrap the bus. They have to rent the bus. The cost of fuel. There's like 20 campaign staff traveling around with Andrew at any given point. How much does all that cost for their hotel rooms, their food, the rental cars for the advance team? This is why we need your donations. Look at all this camera equipment. It costs money. We need your money to fund the money. Right now it's Robert. At $250. $250. Yeah. But we really need to up our game here.
Oh, yeah.
It's called theyangame.com, and right now we are not having a game show. We're having like a poo-poo party. Now, we appreciate we appreciate everyone who donates. But like,
anyone out there wants to,
compared to a few days ago, things were popping, and it's just, I don't know.
But we appreciate it, and you help get Andrew's voice and message out there.
Nobody's falling for my marketing tricks, so I gotta come up with a bunch of new ones. That's basically the issue. So it's all on me.
It's all on you. Okay,
Yep.
well you can also, hey, if anybody out there wants to maybe do like 255, we'll just start a bidding war and just.
That's the idea.
You know,
It's a game
255.
show.
Let me see what's my best. 255, 255. Is that a good? I pretended to be like an auctioneer. 255.
255. Oh, that's a good idea. I'm gonna do that.
Maybe that.
Yeah. You guys wanted me to interview Maroon Lady, but she's already being interviewed. Oh, I'm sorry?
Were you talking to us?
No, sorry. This is actually a live stream, so I'm talking to like 1,000 people who are watching.
Oh.
Yeah. It's the new technology, you know. Thank you, Rainey, for the $5 donation. Do we have another 5? Do we have another 5? Oh, it goes to Dale at 250. Do we have 250? Do we have 250? Oh, Susie with the 10. Oh, Paul with the 10. Do we have 2? Do we have 10? Oh, there we have another 5 from Garrett. Do we have another 10 from Garrett? Strong for $3. 5. Daniel. Kong with the $100 donation. Robert is our donation to the leader. Do we have 255? Do we have 255? Do we have 255? Do we have 255? Do we have 1,000? Do we have 1,000? Do we have a $2,800 max donation? Do we? I don't know. Do we have 255? Do we have $250 max donation? Do we have? Oh, we have 10 from Clement Wilfredo with the 5, and that's it for this live stream so far. Oh, we have George with the 5. Nobody fell for my marketing tricks. This is so upsetting. Would you like a bumper sticker?
Oh, I've got one. I would take one.
Awesome, thank you. All right, let me steal their interview.
Sometimes I feel like some of the candidates are lecturing are not making fun of me smart enough to get it. Something like that. So I got very bad at it.
Back to what you said about how Warren's still your number one, and sort of ranking. You rank better with
Warren's her number 1. We got a converter. That's our job.
I'll take a bumper sticker, thank you.
How about for you?
I don't have a car. He's not an Iowan anyway.
I got you. Don't worry. I'll be right back.
Where they can hit.
Oh, bumper sticker.
Because we don't have a car.
For you? Do you need another?
One's fine.
Okay. Perfect. Oh, they got plenty because yeah.
One of our other Democrats.
They have they have. So this is right here is a live stream, and there's like 1,000 people watching, and they're always donating to make sure that the campaign has enough of these to give as many away as possible. Thank you, donors. Where are you from? You from here in Chariton?
From Centerville.
Centerville. Awesome. What did you think of Andrew's message today?
I love this message. It's the second time I've seen him, and I like how he thinks about that our worth is, whether we have disability or we're autistic or epileptic or whatever, we all have worth.
Yep.
And I like that.
Yeah, it's so powerful.
Everybody, whether you're a writer, whatever you are, architect, we're all important. We all have worth.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love confusing human value and economic value. Humanity first.
Right.
Yang. Gang. No, thank you for coming out. Really appreciate it. Oh shoot! I didn't realize Andrew was right there. I like.
Where we end up having to go is we end up having to have some kind of health system that gives everyone. Sure. Something that catches everyone, whether they're.
Do you have a bumper sticker, sir?
right here.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out. Would you like a bumper sticker, ma'am? Awesome. Thanks for coming out.
We definitely know he's probably going to be at the Adair event. Is that where you
I'm not.
Oh, okay.
But the campaign is paying for my rental car. Because I promised them that I would raise $100,000 for their campaign, which is why I need everyone who's watching this live stream right now to donate so that they don't leave me stuck with the bill. Because Zach's like, yeah, if you don't raise it, you're screwed.
Really?
Yeah.
How many people are watching?
Probably like, now that the speech is done, it's probably like 700-800. Yeah, so please donate. Who was it that didn't have a car? Oh, did you get your bumper sticker, sir?
I actually have one at home. I do not. I do.
Well, luckily I don't have to run back and grab another one for her.
I'm very much.
Look at the books. They're just giving them out and they're being signed. Oh, was it you who needed stickers? Non-bumper stickers?
I do.
Awesome. No problem. Thank you for coming out. Thank you, Stephen, for the $100 donation, Andrew Yang. Thank you so much, Stephen. You are the best. Thank you, Carol, for the $25 donation. Thank you, Edward, for the $15 donation. Thank you so much, Stephen. Yes. Would you mind doing like a quick little interview on live stream?
Sure.
Awesome, because I heard you say we need to change the world.
Yeah.
Would you be able to elaborate on that for the online audience?
Oh, where do we start? Well, first off, a lot of people think the work is happening now to get Andrew elected, which I agree. But I think the real work will start once he is elected. That will allow so many of us to start businesses and nonprofits. Mine and her dream is to start nonprofits. So like, I would just this is the beginning for me. Getting Andrew elected. That's when I think the real work is. I just really hope the passion keeps building.
What would your nonprofit be for?
What was your main focus on your nonprofit? Mental health.
Yes.
Help who?
Mental health.
Mental health. That's
I'm
a
not sure exactly how I want to do
really
that.
respectable cause.
I worked at a mental health hospital too for several months, so I'm very passionate about that as well. But also like his policies, like the American exchange program and stuff like that. Like we love those ideas and would love to have our own versions of things like that. And like if people have $1,000 a month in their hands, that's super feasible to bulk up. Yeah.
Is this the first time you had heard Andrew speak?
I went to Yangapalooza.
Oh, awesome. Did you go to Yangapalooza?
I did not. He went to a fundraiser in San Francisco where he invited my college.
Oh, wow.
I'd love to go.
Was that the one like a week ago or like a few months back?
A couple months back.
Wow. Are you from here or from San Francisco?
I'm from Berkeley, actually.
Berkeley.
Yeah.
Are you out here for canvassing?
Yeah, we're both. My second time coming out.
Let's go. Canvassers for Andrew Yang. Let's go. What's the experience like canvassing? What's been the most heartwarming moment for each of you?
Oh, okay, so we both have the same one. We were knocking in apartment complexes, and there was a group who, like, right when we said Andrew Yang's name,
They're like,
we were
"That's
very
our boy,"
excited.
and
then we started screaming and like jumping up and down.
Yeah.
They invited us
so-
inside, and we were just all talking.
I had a door I knocked on and I like did my little pitch and they're like, this is gonna be the easiest thing you've ever done because me and my whole family already support Andrew Yang. Could I get a shout out for Robert who donated $250?
Hey Robert, thank you so much for the donation. Appreciate it. You are fueling a campaign that's going to shock the world on February 3rd. So thank you for the support.
Thank you for working so hard, Andrew.
Can I get a selfie with you, actually? Thank you.
All right, one more question.
Okay.
What is your post-selfie reaction with Andrew Yang? What was it like? Describe everything you're feeling in this moment.
So beautiful. When you said yes, the light was shining. So
The light was
great.
shining. It was
Shining. It's great.
kind of blinding, actually.
Yeah. Very amazing.
All right, but for real, a lot of respect for you guys canvassing out in the cold. I've only done it. I'm actually I feel lucky that Andrew came into Iowa for 17 days because I was going to be here regardless. And I'm like, yes, I get to be in a warm car and then go into buildings, not out. Otherwise, I would just be door knocking. So you guys are doing like the hardest work there is. So appreciated. All right, stream. It's time to get the heck out of here. Yeah, see you guys.
Yeah, if you want to, I'll add your number real quick.
But just to make sure, I'm gonna have you write it on a piece of paper. Yes. Just in case anything happens.
Thank you, Jin, for the $10 donation. Thank you, Matt, for the $5 donation. Yang gang. Let me call Darth Clyde on the flip phone. If you guys enjoy the flip phone, consider donating to Andrew Yang's presidential campaign.
Me too, actually. That one works.
I think I'd have to find it.
But if you just, if you can write it on the
Yo.
campaign, I can definitely make sure you get that.
Oh, I guess you don't have to do anything on your end because I'm going to stay on Twitch. Alright. No, I wasn't. Yeah, let me try it. Let me cut right there. Internet's just bad in here. Alright, if you'd like to continue following this live stream, join us on twitch.tv/the Zach and Matt Show. Okay, so now, if I cut the feed here, what? Yep.
I'm the Clark Lucas Decatur.
It's working? One sec. It's loud in here. Let me, Did you say it's working? I'm still up on YouTube? What? I wonder about, like, Twitter. What'd you say? Okay, so I guess you gotta cut it. Bye, everyone. I thought you were all gone a long time ago.